We're going to go across to a MediaWatch now. We're joined by Emma James. She's just getting set up here in the studio. It's a little bit last minute this evening. Emma, you've been starting out with a story here in France where the 2-year-old state of emergency has come to an end. Is that a good or a bad thing?
Well, it does depend where you look, obviously, because there are always many differences of opinion on this kind of subject. However, I think when you look online and on social media in particular, the views are probably best reflected by this front page from Le 1, which has the fundamental principles, really, of France: liberty, equality, fraternity. The motto of France, if you will, and you can see it's obscured by one other word: security, by an armed soldier there. Now, looking at what Emmanuel Macron had to say, he says we'll be exiting the state of emergency on the 1st of November, while reinforcing, strengthening the security for our fellow citizens. Something that some people find a little counterintuitive, if you like. Looking at what Politico has to say on this particular story, they talk about the fact that Emmanuel Macron has made it clear that there could be changes to this law. It's going to be re-evaluated in 2 years' time.
Yeah, the sunset clause, yes.
And if any changes need to be made, they will be made then. Of course, what we don't know is whether that would be weakening or strengthening this law. There's been a lot of criticism online, including from fellow French politicians. Michel Tabarot from Les Républicains, the Republican Party, says that it's duplicitous, I can't even say it, duplicitous, for him to say that they're going to be strengthening security for the French at the same time as ending the state of emergency. Eric Ciotti, also a Republican politician, says that the end of the state of emergency is an error and will weaken the degree of protection that the French are currently sort of experiencing. As for ordinary French citizens, well, there's a lot of angry responses out there. This particular Twitter user saying, end of the temporary state of emergency, enter the permanent state of emergency. And that is a viewpoint that I think quite a few people share, really, that this is really exchanging like for like. This Twitter user, this one's been shared very widely, says the state of emergency has been written into the common law, RIP freedoms. Now, interestingly, there is actually a website which tells you exactly how long France has been under the state of emergency: 1 year, 11 months and 17 days. And the reason that it says we, or yes, is because this website's actually called "Are We Still in a State of Emergency?" It's been monitored very, very closely by some people who really don't like the idea. This Twitter user is saying that finally we're going to be able to say no, but then he says, oh wait, because again he is another person who believes that this is just swapping one state of emergency for another.
Repackaged.
Interestingly, though, and it's often said that on social media and Twitter in particular, people are much more likely to be negative and angry than they are to be positive. IFOP, the opinion pollsters, are reminding us that in August of this year, so not that long ago at all, only 22% of French people actually wanted an end of the state of emergency. So it kind of is out of kilter, really, with the reactions that you're seeing on social media. It does have to make you wonder, really, just how much Twitter really reflects the views of France in general.
Now, you're next covering another controversy here in France, which has many people angry. Roman Polanski, the film director, honoured in Paris last night.
Yes, absolutely. Some people just feeling that France completely out of step here with the rest of the world.
Exactly, given what's happening all over the world.
As Harvey Weinstein and various other high-profile Hollywood characters and even politicians in the UK and in France too, all being revealed to be sex pests to greater or lesser degrees. Amid all the furor over that and the hashtag #MeToo and all the women talking about how they have suffered at the hands of men, France and Paris and the Cinémathèque Française chose to honour Roman Polanski, a convicted child rapist, let's not forget, and Vox calls it a case of truly bizarre and fairly offensive timing. Because, of course, this retrospective that's being held in Paris is to celebrate and honour his career. Looking elsewhere, certainly a lot of American websites really just disbelieving that this is happening. how many women have to accuse Polanski of assault before we stop honouring him? Because, of course, he was convicted of one case of child rape, but there are 4 other women who've come forward making similar accusations when they were children too. So it really is very sinister stuff. Now, unsurprisingly, there were protests there last night. Inna Shevchenko from the protest group Femen says to honour once again the criminal Polanski is to insult all victims of sexual aggression using the hashtag #MeToo that we've seen so much of in recent weeks. And you can see that in that photograph there's a very angry woman who was bare-breasted and daubed on her body the words, "very important paedophile." They were shouting no honours for rapist as they went in. But it's interesting to note that Polanski himself carried on signing autographs.
Like nothing happened.
As though there was no problem whatsoever. One of my favourite images from last night is this one. If rape is an art, give Polanski all of the Césars. The César, the French equivalent of the Oscars, really. If you were wondering whether he might be a little shamefaced in the face of all this criticism, no, it would appear not. He has used the word zinzin to refer to the people who protested against him. Zinzin, which basically means people who are a bit nuts, loopy, crazy.
Oh, the crazy.
So he is not in any way taking their criticisms seriously at all. Other Hollywood figures, though, think that he should be facing more of a backlash. Judd Apatow, who's a producer, says that Polanski's allegations are as bad as Weinstein's or worse I would say, and he should not be in the Motion Picture Academy. Interestingly, one of his alleged victims has started a petition calling for him to be kicked out of the Academy, but so far, fewer than 20,000 people have signed it.
We'll see what happens. Emma James, thank you very much for the look at what's happening online.